Game over. It is game over.
Game over, cancer. I'm Val Solomon, Director of Program Impact at Cannonball Kids Cancer Foundation.
And I'm Dana Nichols, Executive Director of CKC.
Game Over Cancer, a podcast dedicated to exploring conversations about pediatric cancer research, solutions, and inspiring family stories.
We're a nonprofit dedicated to creating innovative treatment options for kids fighting cancer and educating for change.
By creating a space for these conversations, we empower the community to take action and provide tangible hope.
Game over, cancer. Screw you, cancer.
Welcome to today's episode, where we're going to be speaking all about how to critically align your values every step of the way, especially when you're living your life out loud through crisis, like so many of our families are facing. And we're going to speak about it with one of the industry's best and one of our longstanding donors and advocates in pediatric cancer and for CKC, Brant Menswar.
That's right. Brant is a sought-after speaker and has worked with some of the most iconic brands around the world. His best-selling book, Black Sheep, has been a blueprint for companies looking to engage employees in the fragmented work landscape we all find ourselves facing. He has a new book and a new concept coming out, Momentum. But more than that, first, we know him as Theo's dad and our friend. Theo and Brant have been supporters of CKC for years. They've laid so much of the groundwork of who we are and what our values are at Cannonball Kids Cancer. Theo battled cancer for 9 years, and in 2021, he passed due to a combination of cancer and COVID. And that has continued to shape so much of what Brant does each and every day. So now that he's taking a deep dive into what he's coined Momentum, he's teaching us all how to crush the critic, capture the moment, and propel yourself forward in a new podcast that he's calling Just a Moment. We're really excited to talk with him today. Every time we talk, we walk away with just tips on how to do life better.
Yeah.
And are
Lots
just
of laughs.
so many laughs, so much good stuff. So it's good because I think there's so much that comes from what you can gain professionally when you hear Brant speak, but also personally.
Yeah. I talk about it a little bit in the episode, but Brant really was there in some of the early years with CKC, helping us as individuals and as the organization, really honing in on mission values. And I know we talk about it a whole lot, especially, you know, we have this little thing called a gala coming up. We have our gold gala this week.
5 days from now.
5 days from now. So why not go down to the studio and record a podcast? So we've been talking a whole lot about the payoff, right? We have focused in on our values as an organization. We've invested in our donors, and really the event, like a gala, is a way to see in the room in real time if the choices you have made and the values you've tried to align with your donors really are working. And I don't know. We'll see. But I feel good about it.
We're feeling good. I think that's so much of it. We walk on our values of what CKC is, on what we stand for every day, and every choice we make comes to a head when we publicly start sharing our mission or sharing our stories. And so we have made choices 6 months ago, 3 months ago, and 3 weeks ago that all shine on stage, hopefully this weekend, and make an impact to people on how we can change this landscape and change things in pediatric cancer. But we do that because we are so rooted in the values of our mission. And then so much of that came from Brant being there at the start with us and with our organization. We're really, really lucky to have him as a friend.
We absolutely are. And I think the choices that we made, as Brant taught us, if they're reflecting back to our values, then no matter the outcome, but we know the outcome is going to be lots of money coming in for pediatric cancer research.
Yes.
And so we believe that. We believe in the mission, and we believe in what Brant taught us. And so now he's going to teach us a little bit more about, you know, what to do when you've done all that values work, but you might be feeling a little bit stuck. And so I really enjoyed our conversation.
It's a great episode. We hope you take this moment and turn it into momentum. Share, like, subscribe, tell your friends about this podcast. Everything we do goes back to our mission, finding safe, effective treatments for all pediatric cancer. And you'll see that we all have a place for it. We all have a place and a role to play. And we hope you find that today while listening. Thank you. Enjoy the show.
So Brant is public facing, and he is teaching people to align with their values and using moment momentum. Can you talk us a little bit through doing that and being who you are, and doing that throughout personal crisis or things happening within your personal life and walking through that? How does that roll out into the things that you teach and the things that you do in your career?
So let me tell you the story as to where this sort of started. In 2020, I had just come out with my book, Black Sheep, and I was having a conversation on LinkedIn. And there was a Gen Zer who I had put forth this idea that it wasn't really about finding your passion in life. It was about discovering your values and living out your values. And what you'll find is that the values are actually what bring you passion. And she responded. Her name was Kimberly. I remember specifically because afterwards, a friend of mine sent me a t-shirt that said #poor Kimberly on it because I lit her up pretty good afterwards. I feel bad about it now. But what she said was, the first thing she said was, great thoughts for an over 40 something, which immediately ticked me off.
That stung, I bet.
I had just fermented my hair. There's no way she could have known that I was over 40, but that's fine. And I said, what she said next was, I don't have the luxury to think like that. And it offended me so bad that someone would say, I don't have the luxury to figure out what matters most to me. And so for years, it sort of festered. And as we're getting ready to write the sequel to Black Sheep and figuring out what that's going to be and coming up with this whole momentum idea, the methodologist who we're working with said, do you mind if I try to explain to you what I think she meant? And she said, when you're, a Gen Z, when you're in your 20s, you wake up every day just swinging. You're just trying to make it to the next moment. You're worried about how you're going to afford dinner tonight or pay rent this month or pay your car payment. You're not thinking about the 5-year plan. So to be able to think like that actually is a luxury. And it rewired the way that I think about it, because most of us live in survival mode. And especially when you're facing crisis, it literally is survival mode. So is it possible for us to take moments within that fighting moment to moment and create enough momentum to carry you past it towards your goals? And that is what the concept is all about. And it's exciting to think about not having to worry about a 5-year plan. It's pretty stressful. There's a lot of anxiety that comes with thinking long term like that, and then holding yourself accountable and not hitting that goal that you wanted and beating yourself up over it. And all of a sudden the depression and the anxiety sets in, and it makes it incredibly hard to motivate yourself to do something. But I believe we were all meant for more. And the way that you can achieve that is by focusing on the individual moments and stop worrying about the grandiose plan that will be rendered moot within hours of you completing it. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think momentum ties so beautifully to what we do at CKC, because I think what we know is, in a story of a child facing cancer for a family, it's never finished. We're seeing one moment in time. We're seeing a survivor until the next struggle or relapse or challenge. And we always say, and we say, then childhood cancer is a life sentence or a death sentence. So you're taking these moments in between. When people know a story as triumph and survivorship, how do you face the next adversity that's coming through? And I think momentum really speaks to that.
I hope so. It's an interesting thing. I get frustrated when I hear people who say, I'm thankful for this that's happened to me. Yeah. And I understand the sentiment, but it's total bullshit. No one is thankful that their kid has cancer. Yeah. No one.
Yeah.
So I wish they would stop saying stuff like that. And I wish they would say, I've learned so much from this moment of how to survive, of how to move past, of how to try to continue to live my life. Yeah. And stop saying you're thankful. You're not thankful. You might be thankful that you have learned how to process, but you're not thankful for that moment. Absolutely. And so we have to be okay with being just raw, 100% bone-crushingly honest, because that's how we reach people. When you say to somebody, I'm really thankful for all of the things and this is that, and I'm thankful that I went through that. No, you're not. You would have much rather chosen not to go through it. Absolutely. And if you think otherwise, you're lying to yourself. And that doesn't communicate to the people out there that are struggling because they're going, I'm not thankful for this. I don't want to go. I would have chosen anything other than having to go through this. So the idea of momentum is it's a 3-step process. And the first step in this is crushing the critic. You know, when we approach an emotional moment, because it's an emotional moment and the minute our emotions are involved, it puts us into a triggered state. And this is just science, right? And so when we're in a triggered state, it's really hard to function. And all of our insecurities start to come into play. And so, you know, this is where most people hear about fight or flight, right? And so the truth is that there are 2 other sort of responses to these stressful moments. And do you guys know what those are? Do you know what the other 2 are?
My other guess is freeze. And then I'm trying to think of a fourth.
I don't know if it starts with an F, but is disassociate? Is that the other one? Like, are you...
So freeze is the third, and the fourth is called fawn.
Fawn. Oh, yes. It's to participate in it and just act like it's okay. So it does, yes.
Fawning is putting yourself in the middle and being a referee.
Wow.
Okay. So here's the interesting thing. All 4 of the responses, whether it be fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, all of them kill momentum.
Yeah.
All of them. Think about it. Fighting kills momentum. Running away kills momentum. Not doing anything kills momentum. And putting yourself in the middle as a referee, how many times do we yell at referees on every game we're watching for killing the momentum of the game? If you have a child who plays, I don't know, lacrosse or basketball or field hockey, all we do is yell at refs to let the kids play and stop blowing the whistle. Right? And so what I am trying to get people to do is to add a 5th F word. I'm a big fan of F words.
Do we need to screen this F word before it goes?
And the 5th F word is focus.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Okay.
When we face these stressful moments, we have to focus. And the first thing that we have to do is crush that inner critic that's trying to talk you out of the moment before it even happens. The I'm not worthy, this isn't going to end up well, whatever it is that's happening, we have to crush that inner critic to put ourselves in the present moment so that we can actually do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, can I come to your next training? Because
do we get step 2?
Yeah.
We got to buy the book.
So here's my question to you. How do you guys crush your inner critic? How do you handle that inner critic?
Yeah, I think for me, as a person who's had anxiety my whole life, I have started saying in the last several years, and especially as a person taking on a leadership role at a mission, a critical mission, I say my anxiety is coming along for the ride and we're going anyways. And so I think of it like it's a little parrot on my shoulder and we're going. So that's kind of been my thing that gets me through, and I'm just going to keep moving forward.
So you're Jafar.
Well, but like cuter. Okay, I'm Aladdin and he's Abu, the little monkey.
Okay, fair enough.
And I think so. we have very similar brains. And so when I'm going through something like that, I'll even just voice it. I'll just say like, yeah, so here was the ridiculous thing I thought this morning. This is my 20-minute detour that I took down my rabbit hole of everything that I might have done wrong. And then I follow it up with, but no one's thinking of me, right? Like I think we spend so much time. I think that's where a lot of my anxiety comes up, especially when you do the work that we do and we're interacting with families and researchers and donors. And there's just so much that's public facing that it's trying to think. My own worst critic is, well, what do people think about me? And the answer I have to remind myself is nothing. They are thinking about stuff that's happening to them for like in their lives. And so, showing up and pouring into them is what's memorable. So just, I have to reposition my perspective on things.
So a lot of acknowledgement, I think is what we're both saying, that like we can acknowledge that feeling. And then that to me is enough to release. But that's, someone at this point in life and this point in my career, like talk to me 10, 15, 20 years ago is a much different story of what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
So would you mind if I give you a couple of suggestions?
I'm dying for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I get it. And it's great to acknowledge the voice. I understand that. But you're sort of deflating yourselves in the process, right? You're accepting this feeling and just pushing past it.
Yeah.
And if you're strong enough to do that, okay. But what if you're not? Right? And so I don't want to play those odds because for most people, especially in a triggered state, it's not going to happen. So I'm going to give you 2 techniques that I teach that I think are easy, and one of them is incredibly fun when you find yourself in these moments. So do either one of you speak a foreign language?
No.
No.
I'm not.
Okay. So here's the thing. If you treat your inner critic like someone who speaks a foreign language, then you need to have it interpreted in order to understand it. Okay. And so here's the beauty of the scenario. One of my favorite quotes of all time is what the eyes see and the ears hear, the mind believes. Mm-hmm. Do you know who said that? Mm-hmm. Harry Houdini.
Okay.
The greatest illusionist of all time has just given us a really powerful way of handling things. What our eyes see and our ears hear, the mind believes. And the truth is, our minds crave certainty.
Yeah.
It just wants to be certain. I did not say it wants to be certainly right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you are hearing that inner critic and it's saying, you're not good enough. This moment is bigger than you. Don't speak up. Don't say anything. You need to be a bad interpreter. You need to listen to the voice and go, okay, what does my mind need to hear? So your mind would say, these people are so lucky I just walked into the room. Can you believe they're waiting for me to speak right now? I mean, it's a little crazy, but I'm humbled that all of these people have come to listen to me speak. It's incredible. It's complete fabricated bullshit, but your mind doesn't care.
Yeah.
Right? So when we can work on interpreting to what we need to hear in the moment, you're going to find that your mind actually starts to believe you because it's what you're hearing. It's what you're telling yourself. And so be a bad interpreter is a really powerful way to crush that inner critic, especially when the moment is happening. It's a fun way, right? I have so much fun with it. Listen, my head is this big when my inner critic starts talking because I just start pumping myself up like nobody's business. I don't even know how my head fits in the room half the time, but it really helps me reframe where I'm at. And I start to find myself, the anxiety starts to come down. All of those, the nervousness, all that stuff starts to settle because I'm literally telling myself everything I need to hear. Now, there are going to be times where the moment is so intense that you can't convince yourself.
Yeah.
I would suggest that we all enlist a small critic crushing crew. And these are friends, maybe family members who you're going to have a conversation with, and you're going to say, listen, I need you to serve this role for me when these moments happen and I can't overcome them myself. So I might call you and I might need you to just sort of crush that inner critic in my head for me because I can't do it by myself. And the more that you start hearing it, the more that it comes from an outside source, the more you start being able to believe it, the more someone's reminding you of the times that you've found success, that you've overcome this, that you beat that. That really helps as well. So those two strategies, one, be a bad interpreter. Your brain doesn't know any different. Have fun with it. And two, enlist, I would suggest 2 or 3 people in your life that form this critic crushing crew that in an emergency you can call, and they will absolutely stop what they're doing and take a moment to help you overcome. Because if you don't, you're going to miss the moment.
Yeah.
And that makes it really hard, not impossible, but really hard to create momentum. So that's 2 strategies I'd give you to crush that inner critic.
Do those things come easier for, I'm just thinking, you just outlined some friendships that I have. Like I have girlfriends that I can call, and we just sort of naturally do that. And I love the framework that you just put it in the context. That's kind of what we're doing when that happens. Mm-hmm. And to me, what I'm hearing, what I think I should do is just kind of pour into that and just being a little bit more intentional. Like, hey, this is what we're doing, and I'm here to do it for you too. I think that's great. Is it easier, do you think, or have you found that women can kind of more naturally, or are our friendships just kind of preloaded to be able to do that? Is it harder for men, I guess, is my question.
I don't think it's gender related. I think it's a lot about how you were raised, what you faced in your life. I find it's more about what you've been involved in over the course of your life. If you grew up playing sports of any kind, and you learn to be competitive, it's people who have an incredible competitiveness that are really good at helping you crush a critic, because it's a challenge for them and they just want to win. Right? And so those are the people that I would reach out to first, not the ones who will love and coddle you.
Right.
You need somebody who is willing to step on the neck of your inner critic and choke it out. Like that's who I want on mine. Listen, the coddling, the loving, that's great. And I love that. But when I am amped up in a moment and someone is being all, you are such a good person, Val. You can totally do. I just want them to go, what?
Yeah.
What's the matter with you? Of course you can do this.
Yeah.
I need that emotion in the moment to overcome the emotion I'm feeling.
Right.
And so you need people who are a little intense, because they're the ones who will amp you up to get you over that hump, as opposed to the very chilled, laid back. You need those people in your life too, but not when you're in this really stressful moment, because your body just wants to tell people like that to shut up. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, I just need somebody to tell me what to do, not to, comb my hair for 15 minutes and tell me that it's going to be okay. That's for afterwards.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. That's for care and recovery after you do the big important thing, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
I love
right.
how you're putting this all together, because some of us, I'm like clicking into place. I'm like, yes, that's totally what happens. But it's not a thing I put into practice. So I love the idea of like, here's how to turn it from a thing that's happening because I have great relationships around me and know who the right person is to snap me out of it, versus like being intentional in this is what I want to achieve when I'm coming up against moments that could have some adversity.
So here's the really interesting thing. If you think of this in context of your messaging to your supporters, to the donors, right? Mm-hmm. It works the same exact way. You have to help them crush that inner critic that's telling them they're not going to be able to make a difference.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's the same exact approach, whether it's for fundraising, or it's for getting ready to stand on stage and have to present to a crowd, or it's walking into your boss's office because you've been called in for who knows what and you have to face this moment. It's the same process no matter what. A moment is a moment, right? And so if we want it to be transformational, the first step is crushing that critic. And it might not be for us. It might be helping somebody else crush their critic so that they're willing to move to step 2, which is actually capturing the moment. So how do we capture a moment? When you think about the traditional, I would say phrase, you think about taking a picture, right? That's what it is. You got to capture the moment. You take a picture. What I'm going to tell you is the way that you capture a moment, there's only 3 ways to do it. It's by building a sense of belonging, a sense of meaning, or a sense of purpose. That's it. Those are your 3 options. If you want to capture a moment, you have to create an emotional connection. Think about every great concert you've ever been to. When you think about these concerts, you don't think when somebody goes, "Oh, how was Def Leppard last night?" You don't go through a 2-hour set list and tell them the entire, concert. What do? You tell them those 1 or 2 moments that made an emotional connection, and you talk about it, because that emotional connection creates a sense of significance.
Yeah.
And a sense of significance is really what gets people to engage. So in order to create that significance, they have to feel like they belong. The moment has to have some sort of meaning, and you have to be headed towards a shared purpose of some sort, whatever that might be. In a concert, it's just, hey, maybe it's having a good time. Maybe it's getting out of your chair and throwing your hands up in the air, or it's singing along, or whatever that might be. It's amazing. I just literally, Sherry and I, my wife, we just went to see our friends in Electric Avenue. Electric Avenue is an 80s cover band that is one of the best bands you've ever heard. They are absolute amazing musicians. It's a 5-piece band. They were playing at a place in Atlanta, in Peachtree City, actually, called the Fred, which is a 2,500 seat amphitheater. Ooh. Neither one of you, I'm sure, has ever heard of Electric Avenue.
No, but
they sold out the venue. They sold it out. Wow. Right? This is like $90,000 worth of ticket sales to sell out this venue. And they just do 80s cover music, but they're really smart about the songs they choose, because they pick the songs that they know are going to have meaning, to create that sense of belonging that brings people back to that high school dance when they played this song in the 80s and they had that moment. So everybody feels like they belong because this is their era of music. Everybody in that place was my age or a little bit older. There were some young people, because 80s music is the best music, and let's just declare that on this podcast right now. But that ability for them to make that emotional connection got people so engaged. That's when they bring their phones out, they're taking video, they're so impressed by the significance that they feel in that moment that they want to engage. They have to engage. So they stand up and dance awkwardly, or they clap off beat, or they sing off key. And you know what? They don't care, because the sense of significance was so great that it compelled them to engage. Yeah. And that's that ability to take a moment and make it transformational. So in that same context of reaching out to donors, you have to create a sense of belonging, a sense of meaning, and a sense of purpose, which I know you guys do a phenomenal job at. And it's why you've had the success that you've had, is because you create enough of that people understand the significance of their donation. Even if it's $10, $20, it's not something that just is a tiny little thing that isn't going to make a difference. It's part of a much bigger purpose, strategy, meaning, belonging. There are so many families in this scenario where they're told there are no more options for you. So what are the options? You put your kid in hospice and you just wait. That's not an option, right? So you guys step in that moment and you create first of all, a sense of belonging, to say, you're not alone. We deal with hundreds of families in the exact same scenario that you are in right now. You create a sense of meaning. We know exactly how you're feeling because we deal with it every single day. And then that shared sense of purpose, which is, this is unacceptable, the amount of money that's put towards pediatric cancer, and we've got to find solutions that don't exist. So it's why you guys come in and say, we're not just going to, listen, I get in trouble sometimes for talking about Susan Komen and the breast cancer, and yes, that's great, but they have more money than they know what to do with. Like, they have more money than research is possible on something that is overfunded. Mm-hmm. It's just the opposite for pediatric cancer. There is no money except for the people that you can create a sense of significance to tell them that their donation will make a difference. That emotional connection compels them to engage. It's why you want them to come to the events. You want them to come to the galas. You want them to come to the Ripple events. You want them to come to all these different things, because what you're able to do is create that sense of significance that compels them to get involved. And that might be with a financial donation. It might be with sharing the moment, sharing the impact, talking about it, so that you guys know I have been able, the impact I've been able to help with Cannonball, as much as I wish I could just stroke a check for $10 million and give it to y'all, is come from me talking about it. Yeah. And trying to get other people to understand the significance of the work that you're doing. And if I do a good enough job, I get a call from you that says, oh, this company just made a donation. Oh, did you know that so-and-so did it? Yeah, great, fantastic. That's part of how I'm involved in a really emotional way. I mean, obviously, I had a child who died of cancer. And so I understand exactly where everybody's at. But that's a club that nobody wants to be a part of. And to be honest with you, nobody wants to talk about it because it's uncomfortable as hell. So you got to talk about the impact, the positive stuff that's happening, as opposed to the horrendous reality of the situation, which does not create that sense of engagement that you want it to, because people are overwhelmed with grief. And when they're overwhelmed with grief, they freeze.
Yeah.
We talk about, well, all of this a lot. And I think that's why whenever we're all together, lunch is 3 hours long because we identify in mutually in so much. And I think for us, that's where we are a lot. When we're walking this line with a family, the burden shouldn't be on you alone to have to solve a problem when you've lost everything. And yet I see in you that you find it very empowering, or you've found where it works for you in a place to be empowering. And I think that's a really hopeful message for other families going through this. And we're always taking cues from families of, where do you want to be in this? And that's different for every single person, right? Mm-hmm. It's hard to know. But I think when I think about you, that's where your whole groundwork of your life and your life's work has been in values. So you know where you're ready to show up, or where to do the work to figure out where you want to show up.
It certainly makes it easier to connect, right? When you know what your non-negotiables are, then it's easy for them to rise to the surface, right? The work that we do helps people discover their, what we call your black sheep values, which are those values, those deeply held personal core values that no matter how much someone wants to try to change them, they will not be moved, just like a black sheep's wool, right? A black sheep's wool cannot be dyed. It is what it is. It can't be made into something that it wasn't meant to be. And so what we know from, 4 years now of research and, tens upon tens of thousands of people who have taken the assessment, we know the average person selects at least 30 values that are what they would consider really important to them. And I would argue that almost everybody knows what those 30 or so things are that matter to them. They could sit down and make a list. But when I ask them which ones are non-negotiable, that's where the trouble starts. Pulling apart really important from non-negotiable is difficult. We treat them like they're an inch apart, but they're miles apart from each other.
Yeah.
Non-negotiable means no. If somebody asks you to do something that violates a non-negotiable, the answer is no. End of discussion. There is no discussion to be had. There is no influence that will matter. It's just no. Most people don't drill down to that level. And so what happens is when there are 30 things that are really important to you, you're going to try to honor all 30 things.
Yeah.
Which leads to anxiety and depression and all the things, because it's impossible to do a good job at honoring 30 different values. So we try to get you to 5 because it's almost impossible to honor more than 5 on a daily basis. So if we can get you to 5 and lead with those 5, then it makes it really easier to find those connection points when you're dealing with an organization that you feel compelled to be a part of. You know how you can contribute, because for me, it's creativity, hope, impact, empathy, family, authenticity. I have 6, 20 years as a rock star.
He broke his own rule. Did you see that?
So the idea, though, is with those 6 things, I know exactly how I can engage with you.
Yeah.
I know that I can be creative. I know that I can give people hope. I know that I can drive impact. I know about the power of being authentic, right? That goes back to my initial rant of I'm thankful for, no, you're not. Stop saying that. Be real. Tell people it was the worst thing you've ever been through in your life and you hate that you had to go through it. And this is what's compelling you to make sure that someone like you who hasn't been through it yet will never have to face this scenario, because it's not something that anyone wants to face. So you have to reframe it. You have to get to that point where you understand exactly what you bring to the table, because that's what resonates. That level of authenticity is a different frequency. We hear it differently. Our brains hear it differently, as opposed to trying to convince somebody else. Or it's like telling somebody you went to a mediocre restaurant, but the owner of the restaurant is right there next to you. And so you have to talk nice about it.
Yeah.
So you do your best, but you can hear the undertones, right? Like when you're saying the napkins were really folded nice, you know that there's something going on here, right? Yes. So it's that same idea of the raw authenticity, as ugly as it can be, is what makes people feel compelled to be involved, right? Because it's obviously significant to you, and that's why you can't put on the good face, right? I always come back to that stupid commercial on TV for depression where they walk around with the stick with the happy face on it.
Yeah.
It's such I can't stand it, but it's such a great commercial because I feel like this is most of us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether or not you're clinically depressed or not, everyone's got this thing in front of their face because everybody's too afraid to just be honest. How's your day going? Kind of sucks. Nobody wants to say that.
Right.
Because now what? Now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I just, this last week was able to go and spend some time with Bob Goff. He was speaking at an event in Fayetteville, Trilith Studios in just south of Atlanta. Bob Goff, if you have not read any of his books, he's a 3-time New York Times bestselling author. He's like one of Oprah's, advisors. He's an amazing man. And one of the things he said is, we always sort of walk into a scenario and say, "How you doing?" He goes, it's just such a bad question because nobody will tell you the truth. So he said, what I would recommend is you ask people, what does it feel like to be you right now? It's such a powerful little twist of words to ask somebody what it feels like to be you. It frees them up to be honest, right? And so that is a little powerful phrase, I think, that we would all learn from if we started asking people, what does it feel like to be you right now?
I love that.
I do too.
I also think that's a great closing point or a takeaway for today.
I think it's great. And I learn so much whenever we chat with Brant. You have such a wonderful perspective, such an amazing clarity and the way you communicate. And we haven't really mentioned it, but Brant has been giving back to CKC. I mean, you mentioned a little bit in your public speaking how you mention us, and we absolutely love that. But I also want folks to know just how much he has poured into this organization. He did values work with us at a very incredible time in our history. And then Dana, when you came on board and kind of taking it to the next level, I really feel, Brant, like your values work that you did with us really did focus us. And I know I still take things from that as well, just personally, because I think you go through the training personally and you go through it as an organization.
Yeah.
And we got a whole lot out of that. And then there's been a lot of conversation since Dana came on board as to how we bring people into this community and into the fight and help them feel like it's possible to do something big, even if they can't do what they feel is something big. So I feel like this conversation has encapsulated a lot of our relationship and what we've done together. But also, you know, this is why we're doing a podcast, right? So other people can hear this. Normally we would just do this at lunch, right?
That's true.
And you can't all come with us.
Unfortunately. There's not enough pizza.
We'd be eating margarita pizzas right now.
But also, I think for people who want to take it further and are going to listen to this and obviously want to follow you, obviously want to learn all about momentum, where do they go for that?
Well, I'm going to say this. I'll close by telling you that the last step is catapulting yourself forward, which is all about sharing the moment. Okay. And that's why you're doing this podcast, so you can start to share these moments. When you understand what you need to share, who you need to share it with, and where you're going to share it, you'll start to see that it creates what you guys like to call that ripple effect, where people start to talk about it, right? Yeah. And so for me, you can go to brantmenswar.com. It's the easiest way, BRANTMENSWAR. And all of the different things that I do, my speaking, my books, my coaching, all that sort of stuff is available there. But what I would really love for you to do is to go to CKC's website and just make a donation. That's what I really want. I mean, at the end of the day, you sharing about how much impact is possible from the average Joe just giving 10, 20, 50, whatever they can afford. I hope you could afford, thousands. But if you can't, at least talk about it. Tell somebody about it. Share about the work that they're doing, because that sharing, you never know where it's going to land. It's part of why I loved the coin challenge that you guys did last year, because you never knew where it was going to land, how much impact you just sharing one time was amplified over the course of 12 months. So I hope that you guys listening would feel compelled to get involved in some way, shape, or form. And at the bare minimum, start sharing about this work and its importance, and the fact that without people like us, it's simply not going to change. So please, please, please think about it, pray about it, whatever you need to do. But at the end of the day, get involved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brant.
Well, thank you for tuning in, everybody. We know it takes a lot, as we all have talked about, just to face this head on. And we appreciate anyone joining us that's willing to listen and to make a commitment to be part of our fight. And until next time, I'm Dana Nichols.
And I'm Val Solomon.
And you're Brant Menswar. And we are so, so grateful you joined us. Thank you so much.
Join us as we transform fear into courage and turn adversity into opportunities for change.
If you want to be involved in the conversations that create change in the world of pediatric cancer, take a moment, share, like, and subscribe.